Hi, fans of high quality entertainment. I am very honored to be talking to Peter Knego. Did I say your last name properly?
Larry, you did.
Yeah,
Bravo.
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually watched your interview. I'd seen it before, but today I checked out Monty's Sparks and Entertainment and Art YouTube channel where he interviewed you, and I highly suggest you check out the full interview. Uh, but how do you say his last name? So I had to go there and see how Monty pronounced it.
Good for you. I mean,
Yeah.
most people just wing it. They always get that thing wrong,
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to each talk about our 15 favorite underrated Sparks songs. So This Town Ain't Big Enough for Both of Us isn't included.
Yeah. Although I still think it's underrated. I mean, compared to Queen and all the other bands out there, anything Sparks did is underrated, no matter how much it did. They deserve the most,
Yeah. At any time, I've done some top 10 Spark songs once in a while. I don't know if I ever have This Town at number one, but when I really, really think about it, it might be number one.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. For me, there's a certain amount of fatigue with it. I mean, and I feel for them as well, because they're probably like, are we ever going to just be able to not play this song? But you have to play what the people love.
But they're lucky. They're not a one-hit wonder band, right? They've got a few, it's not just that song, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Amateur Hour, they never play that anymore. That was a big hit in the UK. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Something for the Girl with Everything.
Yeah.
That was a hit too.
Yeah.
So
they don't have it. I don't feel as bad for them as other bands like A Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah. Well, but they literally had like 3 albums and 4 hits. So,
yeah.
It's kind of limited, but
yeah. So Peter did work with Ron and Russell for about just over 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can talk about that a little bit. But before we get into anything else, let's not talk about music. Let's talk about ships. Because Peter, I especially love tall ships.
Oh yeah, Larry. You had great and mosquitoes, which is something that you and I share in common.
Yeah.
I'll let you, you can tell your viewers all about that, but
some other time.
Okay. And I don't want to make your viewership, your subs drop by talking too much about ships, but that's my other passion in life. Sparks and ships. I love ocean liners, not the 8,000 passenger Royal Caribbean cruise ships that are out now, but classic ocean liners like the real Queen Mary and New Amsterdam and America, those great ships. And I like smaller ships to cruise on. I'm a cruise journalist. I actually get assigned to travel on cruise ships to write about them for publications, and I make YouTube videos about them as well. But my fascination is with the classic liners because they were magnificent creations, the size of a skyscraper. They could go 30 miles an hour, and they crossed the Atlantic and Pacific and all the great oceans of the world in the worst conditions. They brought people together, and this was an era when there was no choice. There were no planes that were making the journeys, and highways weren't necessarily built up to what they are now. So people had to rely on ships to get them from A to B. And who was a big ship aficionado was David Bowie. He used to sail on the QE2, and he came over to Los Angeles on a ship called the Oriana, and he wrote about it in one of his memoirs. And it's funny because that day when I was a kid, I was going from Los Angeles, my house in the Hollywood Hills, which is right next to Laurel Canyon, to visit that ship. And Bowie was getting off the ship and taking a taxi to Laurel Canyon to visit his friends. So,
cool.
I'm not the only person. And Ron and Russell have even referred to ships in some of their videos, and in the beginning, their first tour, which I didn't know about until years later, was they dragged Russell across the stage. Yeah. In a paper mache ocean liner, basically, for slow boat. Right.
Yeah.
So, and now that I own the BBC, which is a great video, which I don't think that many people saw, they
that's a great
recreated
video.
an ocean liner.
Yeah.
And they did the song Titanic with Christy Hayden, which is one of my favorites of theirs.
Yeah.
Actually, that should be on my list.
Yeah.
But it's so unknown that
Yeah.
you know, and it's also not pure Sparks. It's Christy Hayden, but yeah.
So tell the viewers your YouTube channel and also your website for the ships.
Oh, cool. Okay, thanks, Larry. I have a YouTube channel called Midship Cinema, and we do a podcast actually, and a lot of it with my friend Dan in Brooklyn, who is a newfound Sparks fan. I turned him on to Sparks, and he loves them. He's going to go see their show in New York next month. We talk about Sparks, you know, and I talk about how Sparks has influenced me throughout the years, and we even named our podcast A Little Bit of Ship Banter after, you know, a little bit of light banter from the new album Mad, which there we go, you know, always Sparks fan. So I have this YouTube channel and I have a website called Midship Century, which is filled with histories of ships and artifacts that I actually went to the scrapyard in India to purchase. You know, I'm climbing these, you know, 10-story high rope ladders and all of this crazy nonsense to visit these ships while they're being cut up and, you know, destroyed. But I'm rescuing beautiful mid-century artworks and furnishings from them.
I love like going to antique stores and all that. So that part of it, I'm not that I know anything about it, but I have an interest in that. I love just like looking at old photos, right? Like I love old stuff.
Yeah. Well, it was beautiful stuff. It was an era when people actually made things to look beautiful. Yeah. And they were designed individually and not on some computer in some boardroom. You know, there was style and elegance, you know, all the way up probably through the, you know, 1980s. Design was original, and then starting in the 90s, it was always copying something that came before, you know. Yeah.
So have you, getting back to Sparks now, and I hope people do check out your channel.
Thank you.
Very interesting. I actually looked at your website too. I found it kind of interesting too, even though I hate ships.
No tall ships, Larry. I don't do tall ships. I don't do warships or canoes. Just ocean liners, you know.
But you understood. I wrote this story years ago, and I sent it to Peter, and so you understand my pain, right, Peter?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the bites, the mosquito bites. I would have been there with you. We would have been counting bites, you know. Yeah. They love me.
Yeah. So your first connection, like you were a fan of, or at least back in the day, you were a fan of Queen, and
then
funny about Queen too. Like I know you're not so crazy about them now, but you were a fan. Yeah. I've got all of their albums, right? I do like them, but I never play them.
Yeah.
There's just something about them that I don't know. I don't know what it is.
You don't need to play them anymore.
No,
I mean, you know, they're on American Idol. It's just, and I'm sorry, but anything they did after, and probably including News of the World, was just a huge disappointment. You know, I like the early Queen stuff. I don't even listen to that anymore. And I never want to hear Bohemian Rhapsody again.
Yeah.
But I am grateful to Queen because I love that multi-layered sound of theirs, especially at that time in music. And it was the Brit bands that were doing that. Queen was doing it with vocals. ELO was doing it with operatics, orchestration, and electronic.
And that kind of started with the Moody Blues in the 60s too, right? Like they
and the Beatles, you know, the Beatles, the White Album and Sgt. Pepper and all of that. I mean, ELO was definitely more influenced by the Beatles, but I think their formula was definitely, you know, Procol Harum also with Grand Hotel, that beautiful album. I think you and I have a lot in common with our classic rock roots. But because of Sparks, I became a new waver and an electronic music aficionado because of Number One in Heaven. That just changed my.
But Peter, the first time you bought this and played it, you said you cried because Sparks had gone disco.
Well, first ELO did it with Discovery, and I hated that album at the time. I mean, it's got great pop songs on it, and Don't Bring Me Down was, you know, I mean, their biggest hit of all time in America anyway. But I was so disappointed because you know, I bought that album and I ran home to listen to it, thinking it was going to
Sorry
be
to
the next.
interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, but did you know before you played it that it was like like disco or
No, I
distortion?
didn't know it was
Okay, I
Disco
did.
Berry, which is what the, you know, the title of the album was, you know, kind of making fun of. And
Yeah,
I was hugely disappointed because it sounded more like Bee Gees than
yeah,
it sounded like classic ELO to me.
yeah,
And Jeff Lynne is a songmeister. And he takes everybody, you know, the Beach Boys,
yeah,
the Beatles, um, Roy Orbison, all of his influences, and he takes them and employs them in his productions. And Jeff Lynne, I thought, was the greatest producer of all time
yeah,
when he was doing ELO.
yeah.
I
I think he's a musical genius. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
And and I loved it because my friends were like, "Oh, ELO, man, they're so uncool and blah blah blah. You know, you
yeah,
should listen to the Beatles." And I'm like, "Dude, I listen to the Beatles, and I love it because when the Beatles, you know, the three surviving Beatles had those tracks of John Lennon's,
yeah,
who did they go to produce it? You
yeah,
know, Jeff
yeah,
Lynne. You know,
yeah,
Free as a Bird and the other song.
yeah,
So I mean, the man is just an insane genius.
yeah.
And so, yeah, Jeff Lynne and Ron and Russell to me, and actually, I'll throw in these other two, Bjorn and Benny from ABBA,
Hmm.
because they're brilliant producers, and you couldn't get more uncool than liking ABBA, especially in high school. I had a couple ABBA albums which I hid in the back of my music cabinet in case my friends came over and saw that, you know, I was listening to ABBA. But you know,
Yeah,
songs like Knowing Me, Knowing You, I mean,
yeah,
that's like Eleanor Rigby. It's
yeah,
beautiful stuff.
yeah,
And ABBA were brilliant, and the girls' vocals were just magnificent to have
yeah,
those two perfect songstresses singing those songs, you know.
yeah,
So yeah, I have a sort of triage of ELO, ABBA, and Sparks, who I thought wrote the greatest pop songs of their era.
hmm,
And the beautiful thing about Sparks is they never lost it. I love ELO, and I bought all the last few
yeah,
albums that
yeah,
Jeff Lynne did, but you know, I listened to them once or twice, and I think there's a couple cute songs on there, but I
yeah,
never go back to them.
yeah,
I am listening to Sparks every day of my life perpetually. Even my hubby Mike is like,
yeah,
I can't wait for a new Sparks album because every day I'm playing Mad, you know,
yeah,
over and over and over
yeah,
again. I'm not tired of it, and
yeah,
I worship them for staying on the edge and
yeah,
for being the most creative people in the world.
yeah,
And yeah, so kudos to Sparks.
yeah,
And I guess I should mention how I got involved with them.
yeah, yeah,
I used to follow them around. They would go to farmers market in LA and have lunch. And so I would go, you know, walk through and look at them from a distance, just going, oh my God, you know, that's Ron and Russell. And they would have fellow bandmates and people, you know, kind of hanging out with them. And
yeah,
this is in the late 70s, just before I think Number One in Heaven came out, and they went over to the UK to promote it and stuff. And I had my introduction to them was my friend in high school. We used to go over to his house because he had a great sound system, and we would play all the latest albums from ELO and 10cc, and he loved Queen. And so he's like, you got to listen to Sparks. And I'm like, okay, but they're American. I didn't like American bands, right?
yeah,
So stupid of me. So he's like, just shut up and listen to this. So he put on Indiscreet, and he played Tits and Under the Table with Her. And I've been reading the lyrics, and I'm like, I cannot believe, A, how funny these guys are.
yeah,
They're so clever and they're
yeah,
so brilliant. And the depth just of those two songs, you know, they're telling these stories that have 14 different meanings at once. You know, I'm
yeah,
just thinking, I can't believe this. So I became obsessed with Sparks, and of course
yeah,
went back Kimono and the first two albums, which I still think are absolute gems.
yeah,
And I became a huge, huge, huge fan. So I would just go and gawk at them from a distance. I was too shy to go up and approach them
yeah,
when they were at farmers market. So one day I was working in the movie theaters in Westwood when I was in high school and college, and I was assistant manager at this theater called the Bruin Theater, which, if you watch Entertainment Tonight, some of those entertainment shows, it's got that big round Art Deco marquee to it, and we had all the great movie premieres there, and it was really fun in the middle of Westwood, which was like the most vibing place in LA in the late 70s. So I'm walking up the street with my what was at the time called my ghetto blaster.
Yeah.
And I'm playing Number One in Heaven, you know, and I just thought, well, if I play this, maybe people will hear it and think it's really cool and want to go out and buy it or whatever. I'm walking up the street and I look up, and walking down the street in their black, you know, stylish attire are Ron and Russell.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God, you know. So I could barely get a sentence out of my mouth, but I just sort of babbled. Listen, if you guys ever want to see a movie, come to the Bruin Theater and ask for me. My name is Peter, you know. And they're like, yeah, okay, cool, you know. And they kept walking, and I'm like, holy shit, I just met Sparks, you know, while I'm playing their music on my ghetto blaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got to the theater and practically collapsed. And a day or two later, I'm up in the office upstairs, and one of my cashiers comes up and says, there's these two guys downstairs. They asked for you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go downstairs, and it's Ron and Russell.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. So they're like, yeah, we'd like to take you up on your offer. You know, can we come? I don't know what movie it was. It might have been Pretty Baby, which the Louis Mael movie with Brooke Shields, which was actually a really good movie. So I think they went in and saw it. And I just know, you know, we sort of on a regular basis, because they hung out in Westwood a lot, and they live nearby. So they would come see movies, and I would let them in. And generally, if it was a blockbuster movie, you know, 10 minutes later, they'd be walking out going, thank you. You know, but if it was something like really obscure and cool, we had this one Japanese movie called The Makioka Sisters. Yeah. And they went to see it and they loved it, you know, and I thought, yeah, these guys, you know, they've got great taste. So I went on to another theater called the National, and we had these huge movie premieres there. That's where I actually met David Bowie. I took him up in the elevator to seat him.
You're just a name dropper.
I am a name dropper. Well, I lived in LA, so you know, all of this was common stuff. We always saw movie stars and everything else. But I did meet David Bowie. And by the way, I like David Bowie, but I'm not a David Bowie fanatic. He's got enough fans, and his stuff, I like it. It doesn't, you know, make me go crazy and I go, oh my God, he's a god. I still think nobody can touch Ron and Russell. So they would come, and I would actually get them into the premieres. Like I got them into the Reds premiere, thinking, you know, they're going to walk on the red carpet. Maybe they'll get interviewed by, you know, one of the big stations. Because Sparks, sadly, were at one of the lowest times in their career. They were starting to get played on K-Rock, but they weren't getting the love that they deserved. So always I was promoting and turning on my friends to Sparks. So I had this one friend who was in the music business. He promoted dance music, and he was doing all the major acts, like new wave acts like Human League and OMD and all these bands. And, you know, oh, I got a #1 record this week, you know? So I'm like, well, why don't you promote Sparks? You know? So I gave his card to Sparks' manager, Joseph Fleury, who had come with Sparks to see movies. And Joseph and I actually became really, really good friends. And they hired him to promote With All My Might, because Cool Places was a big dance hit, but it made it up to number 13 on the club chart because Atlantic didn't push it. They just let it go. And I didn't know that you had to promote records in order for them to be successful.
I remember when that album came out, and With All My Might was the single. And I was thinking, you know, at that time, this is going to be a big radio hit. It's got,
should have been.
And it is. It would have been a big radio hit.
Atlantic didn't give a crap about that record. But you know what it was? It was Progress that was supposed to be the club hit on the A side, and With All My Might and Sparks in the Dark. It was a double or a triple, what do you call it? Triple 12-inch single. But anyway, so they never got promoted. Beat the Clock should have been a #1 dance record. It was being played in New York clubs, and they were selling it, the 12-inch single, for like $150 back in the 80s if you could find Beat the Clock. You know, so here are Sparks. They're producing these brilliant records. Nobody's playing them. Nobody knows about them. They hire my friend, who had some issues with chemical dependency and various things. And he went off and started partying when he was supposed to be promoting the Sparks record. So I'm like, what are you doing? I introduced you to these guys. You're supposed to be promoting this song. So he hands me a pile of cards, 5x8 cards with these DJs' names and phone numbers on them, and said, here, call these guys. And it tells you what time to call them, and they report to Billboard, and you work the record. So I'm like, okay. And his other records at the time were with all Wham, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, and the Comatines, and a couple other down and not well-known new wave songs. So I'm on the phone. They're taking my call because of Wham, because Wham is starting to become really popular. And I'm talking about Sparks. And the record was kind of falling off the charts at the time. And it was too late to save it, basically. But it was getting played. And it became what you call a sleaze record, what you play at the end of the night in the clubs when you want everybody to kind of have one last romantic get together and then they go home. And With All My Might to this day is a classic sleaze record and a beautiful song. It should have been a pop hit. If it was anybody else, it would have been a pop hit. It was better than most of the music that was coming out at the time. And that's the problem with Sparks. They're just so damn good. But because they were on so many record labels and because, everybody dropped the ball on them. And I think it just kind of tainted their commercial viability. Radio was like, oh, it's another Sparks record. Okay, whatever. And nobody really paid that much attention.
I had a friend back in the 70s who supposedly hated Sparks, right? He was a big Beatles, Paul McCartney fan. So he always used to tease me. This was like 1974 Kimono, and My House was out and all that, Indiscreet. So he was teasing me all these years. And then when Introducing Sparks came out, guess what? He ended up buying it. Right? Like,
it's so funny. And Introducing is a great album, but it was not a great on the level of Sparks' greatness. Great album. It was just better than most of the other albums that were out at the time. And it had some classic cuts, one of which I'll talk about. But yeah, they were that whole period with Big Beat and Introducing it. And I think, Larry, I've heard you say too, Big Beat's probably your least favorite because it was kind of angry and
no, I love Big Beat. The only thing I didn't care for, I don't mind it as much now, was the production.
Yeah, I liked I thought the production was really good, and I liked the beginning of Big Boy and all of that. But
I love Big Beat.
Yeah. Okay, I say I didn't. It wasn't my favorite. I mean, I like it. I mean, there's great songs on there.
Well, I'm a big Sparks fan, Peter. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, what Sparks? Who's that? All right. They sound like Pet Shop Boys.
The first disappointing album for me at the time was Terminal Jive.
Yeah. Okay.
It was like no person, like at the time, no personality in it. It's like, this isn't Sparks. This is just commercial. I do like it a lot more now, but
I love Terminal Jive. And I even told Ron and Russell that about, 10 years ago, because I had dragged it out and was listening to it. I'm like, the production on Terminal Jive is so great. And they kind of looked at me like, okay. Yeah. That was the end of that. Yeah. There are some great songs on there, and it was Marauder, even though it wasn't on the level of Number One in Heaven, which is probably my favorite album of all time. And I think when you follow up an album like that, of course, it's going to be a disappointment, no matter how good it is. Yeah. But there are a couple songs on there that I think are great. And I think the production.
I've got one on my list, Peter.
Yeah. Okay, good. We might have the same one.
Maybe.
So, So anyway, when the next song came out, they did change after the Pulling Rabbits album that came out as a single. And, the whole story, the guy at BMG or whatever record label it was said, look, you guys, can't you do something you can dance to? And so they're like, okay. So they did Music That You Can Dance To, Rosebud, which is one of my favorite songs. It's definitely on this list, and Change. And that was what they were shopping around in America. And they did their own mixes on Music That You Can Dance To. And they hired me directly without my friend. And I promoted the record. That started my company, and it got up to number 6 on the club chart, it's still their biggest US club chart record. And if it weren't on Curb Through MCA, where the dude in MCA wasn't into Sparks, telling people, no, I'd rather have you on Jody Watley or whatever, I probably could have gotten that record to number 1. But I was working with him in the beginning until I went to Curb after that. And I said, look, whatever you release from now on, I don't want MCA to be involved because they've got their own agenda, and it gets lost in this hierarchy of, okay, Bobby Brown and Jody Watley and all these other artists that were much more important. But that's how I started my career in the music business and working with Ron and Russell. And for the next 20 years, you know, they would do records, and of course they would do dance mixes, and I would bring them all the latest stuff from the top DJs at the time, the remixers like David Morales and Junior Vasquez or whoever was hot at the time, and say, look, you guys, this is what, you know, they're playing in the clubs and what they really like. And Ron and Russell did their homework, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, we can do that. I mean, that's just so incredibly brilliant. They can do everything. They can produce their own videos. They can remix their songs.
Yeah.
They produce their own albums.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to talk about for a minute too, was especially on, I've noticed it the most with this, but even the other newer albums. Russell is such a great producer. And how do you know how he must have just gradually like learned on his own, I guess, through the years?
Yeah, I'm not a technical guy, so they didn't get really into all of that stuff with me. But I was there after Music That You Can Dance To, which they recorded in a full studio, and there was this big deal at the time. There was this synthesizer called the Fairlight, and there were only like 3 or 4 in existence. And Moroder used to use a Fairlight synthesizer, and I know Ron and Russell always wanted to get their hands on that. But you had to go to a studio, and even to do a remix of one song, to go in and, you know, in a studio, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars, which wasn't in their budget. So Russell was way ahead of the curve and figured out, hey, you know, I can buy software. I've got a Mac. I can put this all together. And they started, you know, with interior design was their first, what they called the Pentagon was, you know, the studio that Russell had created in his living room, basically, to record that album.
And then you don't have to worry about studio time anymore, right? Like,
well, you're not on a schedule when the studio's available. You're not paying a fortune. You know, they did hire an engineer, this guy John Thomas, who was in their band for a while, and I think, you know, John was able to kind of bring Russell into the fold and figure out how to use all of the stuff. And John was a really good guy, really sweet guy. So Russell just learned, and then as the technology evolved, so did their production skills. And, you know, I think for their very first album project, interior design was, you know, a masterwork. And a lot of people, they dog that album to this day, which is very frustrating.
I didn't care. I thought it was just like mediocre at the time. I like you, I have a new appreciation for it now. Like,
I love it. I mean, and the songs were there were so many good songs on the album. It was more song focused than Music That You Can Dance To, which was the other album I worked really closely with them on. Music That You Can Dance To was their opus. It was their way of saying to the world, you know, to producers like Trevor Horn and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who were doing like Janet Jackson's Control, you know, this wall of sound electronic thing that was going on. Ron and Russell were like, we can do this, you know. And I think Music That You Can Dance To, the sound quality and the production on some of those songs is incredible. A song like The Scene and Change, it's mind-boggling. I don't think it had their most accessible songs per se, with the exception of one of the ones or two of the ones. Music That You Can Dance To, of course, was one of their greatest songs, and I'm so glad to see it coming back in their tours. But you know, Rosebud. But we'll talk about Rosebud when we go down our list. I just think that that's really one of Sparks' best songs, and that was a very challenging time for them. K-Rock, which was their comfort food in LA, K-Rock embraced everything Sparks did up until the beginning of interior design. And they played So Important, and they loved Just Got Back From Heaven, but they never played it. And then after that, they went, you know, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Beastie Boys. They were going for an aggressive sound. They were going to get into the Nirvana kind of thing. And bands like Sparks, who wrote great pop songs, were just no longer in vogue at K-Rock. So they lost K-Rock. They never had radio in the US. The UK had completely abandoned them.
Yeah.
So it was just a very, very hard time,
Yeah.
but they never stopped their creative process. They were
But
always working.
imagine how hard it was being a Sparks fan, Peter, because after Interior Design came out, right?
Yeah.
I never heard anything about Sparks for about 5 years.
Yeah.
I seriously thought they were done. Like I thought, oh, they broke up, right? Because they'd never be in like Rolling Stone magazine or anything.
Yeah.
But
Rolling Stone.
meanwhile, they're working away, right?
Constantly.
I didn't know at the time.
And they did all sorts of demo projects, which some of which were, I think, released on the bonus tracks of Gratuitous Sax, right? They did a series of songs that were sort of Manchester inspired, like Jesus Jones and In Spiral Carpets, She's an Anchorman, and beautiful songs. And I tried shopping them, for them. At that time, sadly, Joseph, their manager, he was sick and he was gradually, sadly, tragically dying. And they didn't have a manager. And I was never officially their manager, but I was definitely their guy in the US that was trying to do things and liaise them with other artists. I introduced them to Larita Mitsuko. They came to LA and they were on K-Rock, and Marsha Baila was a big hit. And my friend who did Dance at Virgin, I called her and I said, Iris, please get me some passes to see Larita Mitsuko. I want to bring Sparks, because they had mentioned how much they love Sparks. And so Ron and Russell were real good troopers, and they came to the show, and they hated going out to clubs and shows and that kind of thing. And they sat in the back and waited till the show was over, and then I took them to the dressing room, and Catherine Ranger opens the door, and there's Ron and Russell, and she's like, my God. She had named their cats Ron and Russell, right? Like my dog was named Sparks, by the way, at the time. So they go in, and Katrine said, would you like some Coke? And, and to this day, I don't know if she was offering them cocaine or Coca-Cola or whatever. But anyway, so they ended up collaborating, and they did Singing in the Shower.
Singing in the Shower,
It was a great song. And so that came out in that gap. And they were working on the My the Psychic Girl project with Christy Hayden. And one of my dear friends, Scott, went to sing backup one day. Russell was looking for backup singers, and he was in theater with me at UCLA. He was a really great singer, unlike me. So they hired him. And so they were working on that, doing different demos. I mean, there were times where, they were considering changing their name to just Ron and Russell Mael, or coming up with something different, because the world wasn't going to accept new material from Sparks. And the whole My thing was really exciting, because it was a Tim Burton movie, and then that collapsed, and that was devastating for all of us, and all that time and effort that they had put into that project. Although I think in the long run, it was a really good learning experience, because it was a movie soundtrack, and they were able to use those skills later on with Annette and probably the project that they're working on now. But there was a single, and I think this led to what happened in Germany. They did a song called National Crime Awareness Week, which I sent to ZYX Records in Germany. They were the only label that was interested, and they signed it. And Feeney Tribe, which was this really great kind of underground Brit band, did remixes on it. And my friend Jack Dangers, who's on Mute Records, he had a band called Meat Beat Manifesto. He did mixes. And so they released that in Germany. And I don't know how well it did, but I think that opened up some doors for them in Germany, because when Gratuitous Sax came out, of course, When Do I Get to Sing My Way was a massive hit in Germany. And that was the first, yeah, man, Sparks are back.
And what a great video, too.
Oh, incredible.
I think that's their best video.
I think it's up there. I like the Charlie Parker video, too. I love Christy, and I like, the Russell with the lipstick, on him and everything, Christy is so spectacularly
she was actually, for me, in the Sparks Brothers, when she was talking about Ron and Russell, and at one point she breaks down about what they were going through. That was not the highlight, but that really the emotional part of the movie that got to me, right?
It was the gravitas of the movie.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think people were really, really moved by that because it brought the heart and the humanity to the story. I mean, Ron and Russell are private guys, and
Yep.
they don't live like rock
And they
stars.
have no emotions.
Well, they come across that way. They come across as aloof because they're
Yeah.
so freaking stylish and so
Yeah.
layered and so brilliant
Yeah.
that people who don't understand them want to write them off as like, oh, they're too cool or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
just, it's so wrong because they're lovely people.
Yeah.
But their whole lives is Sparks. They're
Yeah.
dedicated to their art.
Yeah.
That's their child,
Yeah.
is what their legacy. And what I've always told them, I always believe this, and I still do, is that in 100 years from now, people will be talking about music in the 20th and 21st century, and they will be referring to Sparks. They'll be referring to the Beatles. There's a handful of people. I doubt that they'll be talking so much about Queen. I doubt that they'll be talking about, Van Halen and, hugely successful acts that I don't think will have this classic everlasting imprint on music like Sparks. Sparks broke so many different barriers, and their style is so full of variety, and the songs are so beautiful. The structure of Ronnie's songs and the way Russell sings.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody sings like Russell. Don't tell me about Freddie Mercury and all this stuff. Anybody can sing with a good voice, but Russell can sing with a good voice, and these, he can rap. He gets the multiple layers of meaning into the songs just by a little quiver in his voice, or something that he'll throw in, which makes it not like your average singer. They're the most brilliant people in the world.
So when you first heard about Edgar Wright wanting to make a documentary on Sparks, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts were,
this is good.
Well, if I don't get into this movie, I'm going to feel like, I've failed in life, So I was like, this is so, it was so long in coming. And I always wondered why nobody did a doc about them. And I'm so glad nobody did, because I think it would have stolen the thunder from Edgar doing it. But they've even said they never wanted to do a conventional documentary about themselves. And they don't want to talk about, their personal stuff and all of that. There isn't that much there to talk about. They just work all the time. Russell exercises and works basically, and they go out and have coffee and that's it. They're not, shooting heroin in a, fabulous cemetery in France and, seducing 85, people at once and doing all the stuff that rock stars do. They're making their music. That's what they live for. When the opportunity to be in the movie came up, their producer, George Henkin, this incredible lady, fabulous British, so much fun. Anyway, she contacted me, and they lined up all these interviews at this studio on Melrose. I think they interviewed well over 100 people. And I thought, if I just get 2 seconds in this movie, then I'm part of this fabric that will live on, right? So anyway, we sat for 2 hours with Edgar, and it was like talking to a dear friend, because he's as big a fan of Sparks as you and I are, know. And I always looked at Ron and Russell. I always thought of them as like the brothers that I wish I had. So of course he became the brother to them, because he was able to open up their world to this whole new audience through his work. I didn't even know Edgar Wright's movies at the time. And then
I did.
Yeah, okay.
I
But
love
Baby Driver was the one.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's so good. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good movie. But talking to George set it up. And so I thought they probably thought, well, let's get this guy over with and we'll move on. But what I was able to bring to the movie, which also Christy was able to bring, was that period in their career that wasn't well documented, and they didn't have much information about, everything from basically pulling rabbits through Little Beethoven was when I was with them. And they really hit their lows in a commercial sense, and nobody knew what was going on with them. Like you said, as a Sparks fan, you're like, where are they? Well, they were there, they were working, and they were putting out music, but nobody knew about it, you know. So I was thrilled to be able to be in that movie, and I was even more thrilled when the movie came out. And I wasn't, I'm in it a lot, I think altogether for about 20 seconds, because I say like 3 words and then, cut next, but I'm there and I get to tell part of that story. And so it's just, to me, the biggest honor. And I'm so happy because, if I weren't in the movie, I would just be like, oh God,
I hate this movie.
Well, I just love them so much. And they really did change my life. I had no desire to get into the record business. I was a theater major. I went to UCLA. Actually, which is interesting because they were film majors at UCLA. I went to University High School in West LA where Ronnie went, 12 years or so before me. So we probably had some of the same teachers. And Harley, who was, their first drummer, actually went to Uni High as well. And I've never met Harley in person. I'm looking forward to it because he just seems like, actually I did meet him at UCLA backstage. For 5 seconds. But I would love to get together with him and just talk about Uni High and stuff. They're just, when I had the chance to work with them, I basically said, whatever else I want to do, these 2 people, and I met a lot of people, and I name drop all the time because I grew up with incredible people. My dad was an actor. My mom was this beautiful model. I got exposed to, movie stars and Mrs. Gershwin, Ira Gershwin's wife, she loved my mom, and I would go over and, have tea with Mrs. Gershwin. People like that were in my life. So I knew how special Ron and Russell were. So the opportunity to be able to work with them was it. I was like, okay, so if I have to become a record promoter, let me figure out how to do this. And I did my best, and I did well in the music business. And it was fun for me because I got to work all the bands that were inspired by Sparks. I promoted Depeche, I promoted Duran Duran, I promoted Erasure, New Order, Susie and the Banshees. These are all bands that grew up with Sparks, on their, posters of Sparks on their wall. We took Run and Russell out. I was promoting Susie, the Kiss Them For Me single, which was their big breakthrough in America, and it got top 10 on the club chart. So Geffen asked me if I wanted to have a dinner with Susie and Budgie and the band. And I was like, hell yes. I said, but ask them, would they like to meet Ron and Russell from Sparks? And so they're like, oh, come on, really? The Geffen girls. And I'm like, yeah. Ask them. So 5 minutes later, I got a call back from the girls at Geffen, and they're like, bring Sparks. So we had this dinner, and so I'm like sitting across from Susie going, oh my God, I love you. And she's like sitting across from Ron and Russell going like, oh my God, I love you. So it was back and forth, kind of love fest. And I regret that they didn't ever do a collaboration. Always hopes. Because I just thought, can you imagine a song with Susie and Russell singing together? And it just, but didn't happen. But I always wanted to introduce bands that I was working with to Sparks. And so actually Edgar brought all of these bands into the movie.
Did you know, like, for instance, Flea? I never knew Flea was a fan of Sparks.
Well, no, but I was at the concert for Pulling Rabbits at the Greek Theater when Red Hot Chili Peppers opened for Sparks, and they weren't big yet. They were kind of underground, and they were getting known, and they went on stage at one point with just socks on their, basically. And so I was like, okay, these guys are kind of edgy and cool, but their music is nothing like Sparks. So I didn't know that Flea was such a fan, and I actually thought some of the things Flea said, like he said, some bands will give you a sweater, and Sparks will give you a yarn and knitting needles or whatever to make your own sweater with. In other words, you don't just sit down and listen to Sparks and go, oh yeah, that's great. You work on it. But when you work on it, the rewards for their music is just unparalleled. Even the Beatles aren't as great as Sparks, in my opinion, So sorry, no thunderbolts, please.
So one question I would like to ask you, if you know the answer, is like for Sparks early, like for instance, Sparks demo, which hasn't ever been officially released. You know, the one
Hmm.
they did before Half Nelson,
Yeah,
and also even the first two albums. Do you know if they own the rights to these yet? Like, so they
I
could be
don't.
remastered properly and
Honest, I have no idea,
yeah,
and I think the problem with Sparks and knowing the ownership rights and stuff is they had different labels in different countries.
yeah, yeah,
So they're Bearsville in the U.S. for those first two albums, but then in the U.K. I think they were picked up. Was it Island that picked them up? For the releases in the UK. I
yeah,
don't know because some licensing deals are for a certain amount of time and others are perpetual. So I honestly don't know, and they probably don't even know at this
yeah,
point. And
yeah,
for them, they're moving ahead. They're
yeah. Of
always
course, yeah,
yeah. They probably it would be nice if somebody were to pick up the rights and release them and remaster them and make them sound really good. But they're like, we're working on a new movie now, and they
yeah,
probably have another album already in the works, and
yeah, yeah,
they're not wasting any time
yeah,
going back and rehashing stuff.
yeah. So the other thing, no, have you seen them on this tour? Yeah,
No, I
no.
am
Oh,
going.
yeah,
I'm flying to Washington D.C. because one of my dear friends, Anne, who I turned on to Sparks about 2 years ago, and she saw them in DC, and she's like, "Are you going to come out for the show? I bought you a ticket." And I'm like, "Oh, well, then I better come."
yeah,
So I'm going to fly to DC and see them on the 9th, I think, of September. And then when I get home, I've got a trip to Alaska. When I come back, I'm going to drive up to San Francisco to see them, and then literally drive back to San Diego. I'm going to see them in San Diego 2 nights later, and then at the Greek Theater in LA. So I'm going to see 4 of their shows on
yeah,
this tour.
yeah,
But what I've seen and what I've heard, and I'm trying not to spoil it too much,
yeah,
and I love the tracks that they chose, especially one of the ones that's on this list here for
yeah,
me,
yeah,
is it's just phenomenal. And people who have seen it and they saw the last couple of tours, which were just
yeah.
out of the moon, over the top spectacular, say that this is even the best one yet.
Yeah.
So damn,
Even
aren't we lucky?
yeah, even from watching a bit of it online, and I have seen the last 2 tours. It's like the band they have now is just so good.
They
You know?
rock, and
Yeah,
they love Run Much, but they've always had good bands.
yeah,
Every
yeah,
time they
yeah,
have the best taste
yeah,
in bands.
yeah,
I love their first band. I
yeah,
obviously love the Island Years band.
yeah,
The Big Beat band was
yeah,
great. The 80s band with David
yeah,
as the drummer, and that whole cast was so cool, and they were so great live. And then even when I got involved with the Music That You Can Dance To time, David was still their drummer, but they had another bassist, this German guy, and they had this girl, Pamela Stonebrook, who was singing backup vocals, who was spectacular. And
yeah,
she wore these black goth things with a net
yeah,
over her face. And
yeah,
she was a statuesque, magnificent
yeah,
creature. And so they have this eye for bands and who can emphasize them without taking away from what they
yeah,
bring. And this new
yeah.
band to me is just they're great. This Evan guy is just a total rocker.
I was going to mention him. He
Yeah.
like, and he doesn't. The thing is, like, I don't know. It's like he's doing his dancing and all that, and it's just great, right? But it's not taking away from Ron and
Right.
Russell at all. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like
He's
we see you,
highlighting.
Ron and Russell. Don't be jealous.
Yeah, no,
But yeah, Evan is just hilarious. Yeah,
he's offering himself at their altar, basically. He's great. Yeah, my friend
yeah,
Ann has a crush on him. I've never met him,
yeah,
so I'm hoping at some point. I don't know if
yeah,
they're even doing backstage stuff. They don't tend to do that too much, especially with the whole COVID thing and everything.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they got to take care of themselves, and so they're not going to shake hands and hug
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
these days. And I don't want them to. I want them to be strong and healthy and do their killer show. So, I don't know if we'll have a chance, but, I'll certainly ask.
yeah, yeah. And so I'll just quickly tell you the times I've seen Sparks. First time was 1982, and actually they're going to be playing on the Saturday, but then they had to postpone it to the Monday because they were on Saturday Night Live. So I saw them at the El Macampo in 1982. And then 31 long years later, I saw them on their solo tour in Toronto. And that was seriously back then. And it was great too.
The two hands, one mouth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were at Lee's Palace, just a small club, like maybe 300-400 people. And I was thinking then, that's the last time I'm going to see them. I was thinking they were kind of close to the end of their career. And then look what happened after, right?
Yeah.
Playing 2 nights at the Royal Albert Hall and bigger shows here in Toronto. I've been to the last 2 and another one in September, 4 rows back, Peter.
Oh, good, Larry. Okay, that's good enough. I mean, that's not good enough. Front row is obviously, but that's the problem when these damn tickets go on sale, and even when you get the codes, in the fan club and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
the seats are all blocked. And then what they do, like in San Diego, they had all the good seats taken, and then after we go and buy our tickets, they released the ones that they didn't sell, and they're like better than the ones we actually bought, But it's frustrating buying tickets these days. But I used to go to their shows. My first show of theirs was at the Whiskey in '81. It was their first tour since they had done, I think their last tour was with Introducing.
Yeah.
And they played the Santa Monica Civic, which I didn't see. So in '81 at the Whiskey, standing in line, they were playing 2 shows a night, and I would go stand in line 5 hours before the show started, because the Whiskey, there were no seats. You just rushed to get up to the foot of the stage. And at those shows, you could shout out songs that you wanted to hear. And Russell
Upstairs.
Well, that was the hit. I mean,
that was a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a big K-Rock song. So Russell would look back at the band and go, "Oh, do we know this one?" So they would play a lot of Kimono and Propaganda stuff, which the K-Rock fans didn't get. And that's the frustrating thing for Sparks as well. You have people from different eras of Sparks who don't like other eras because they only know the one style. I remember when Balls came out and they were at the Greek, and there were some Sparks fans behind me, and they weren't playing the K-Rock stuff because they'd moved on. And these guys were like, "Yeah, man, they didn't play I Predict." And I love I Predict, by the way. That should have been massive. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, but if you love Sparks, let them take you to a new place. Because like you said, I cried when I got number 1 in Heaven, because I'm like, what the fuck is this? This isn't Sparks, right?
Yeah.
And then after like 3 listens, I'm like, oh my God, this is not only Sparks, it's Marauder. It's the most brilliant collaboration of forces ever. Yeah. And that album is, to my dying day, I'll probably have listened to that album over 1 million times. I mean, I just love that album, everything about it. But they had to bring me into that, and then they went rock again with Want That Sucker. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm up for this. And then I became a new waver because of them. And, all the different styles that they've done. Little Beethoven. I mean, when that album came out, and that was their big secret, they were like, we're working on this project. It ain't going to be dance, and I'm like, oh, fuck, that's frustrating. But, they were working on this project, which they didn't want anyone to hear. And I got to be, I got the honor of being one of the very first people to hear that and sitting with them, listening to that on headphones. And I was in tears. It was right, during the whole 9/11, the aftermath of 9/11, when everybody was sort of depressed and sad. And there were those emotions, which I think Ronnie was tapping into that a lot with like My Baby's Taking Me Home, and, just this pathos to that album and the depth of it and the feelings in that album. People write them off as being funny and whatever, but there are feelings in Sparks records if you allow yourself the pleasure of delving into, what's underneath those funny lyrics, So I'm just so in awe of them and their talent. I'm so proud of them. I think the last 4 albums, and I actually love the FFS project, which I didn't like as much at first, and they had to bring me into that. And I began to appreciate Franz Ferdinand because of them. I think the level from Hippopotamus onwards, they just reached this, they can do it. It's almost effortless, the talent and the wisdom and the beauty of their songcraft. It's so awesome, and to
Yeah.
be able to experience it as a
Yeah.
Sparks fan, which I am now. I don't get to work with them. I'm not
Yeah.
privy to all of the behind
Yeah.
the scenes stuff like I used to. I miss that. That's the only thing I miss
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
music industry is having a coffee with them in the afternoon and talking about what they're working on and all of
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm standing in line with everybody else at their shows,
Yeah.
because if they let in everybody that was a part of their
Yeah.
career,
Yeah.
that's all they would be doing is playing
Yeah.
for their friends, So
And what I love about YouTube too is, I've been doing this for like 20 years. Back a few years back, I used to, I don't think I talked about music when I first started, just comedy, stupid comedy videos. But when I started to talk about music, I started to, talk about different bands I love, like Sparks, not ever thinking anybody's going to actually listen to me, right? But through the years, I get so many messages, Larry, I became a fan of Sparks because of you. And that's what I love, right? That's what makes me happiest, right?
yeah,
When, you love something, right? And you want other people to love what you love, right?
absolutely. And
Yeah.
especially if it's something that they haven't heard of,
Yeah.
or if they're listening to, their offspring, like I love Pet Shop Boys, but
Yeah.
I mean, look at any Pet Shop Boys album cover. It is basically Sparks' Terminal Jive era,
Yeah.
reproduced over and over again.
Yeah.
And they're sardonic lyrics, but the difference between, and they write great songs. I love Pet Shop Boys, but their ability to perform, Neil Tennant is no Russell Mael. He talks through songs like Al Stewart, The Year of the Cat. He doesn't sing. He doesn't have that kind of a voice. He writes great songs, and there is a sardonic quality and a cleverness to their lyrics. I give them that on their layers, which is what I think elevates them from a lot of other electronic bands. But they ain't no Sparks. And so they have all the lasers and the backup singers and all of the great stage productions behind them because they cannot deliver. Where Russell is the ultimate showman. I mean, he hits the high notes to this day. He jumps, 3 or 4 feet into the air. He never tires. Ronnie is, spot on as that wonderful character from 1930s or 1920s and 30s classic screwball comedy movies. And they're like no other band. They're so original and to this day so potent and unique and powerful. And the problem with all the bands that I love is they might have had 2 or 3 good albums and then they fizzled out because they made too much money and got too drunk or whatever. Ron and Russell just never gave it up, and they can do everything. Their videos, they can remix their songs, they can do movie soundtracks, they can even act. I mean, what else do you need? I don't need other bands,
Oh, one other question. You might not know this either, but I saw a picture of Ron and Russell with Brian Wilson from maybe 3 years. Do you know what that was about? Was that?
I don't, but I was happy to see it. And I'm glad, I mean, I'm glad that they give their nod to Brian Wilson. And
I love the Beach Boys. I've become a huge fan. Like, I've always liked them, but in the last year, I've just done a deep dive on everything they've done, and I'm just amazed by a lot of it. Not everything. I'm not the biggest Mike Love fan.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mike ain't all about love. I'll tell you that. That's an ironic last name if there ever was one. I mean, obviously the guy's talented, but I have not. People who I know that know him nobody has anything nice to say about the guy, and obviously anyway, I don't want you to.
And one other thing,
you don't want me to talk about my politics, but
one other thing is I was really kind of surprised when I read that one of Ron's favorite albums of all time is the Velvet Underground White Light, White Heat. I love the Velvet Underground. And he also mentioned the song Sister Ray, which isn't for everybody, but it's one of my all-time favorite songs. So it's just so cool. One of my favorite artists loves another one of my favorite artists.
I think it's really cool. And also, it's very rare for Ron and Russell to necessarily like
the same things.
somewhat contemporary artists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Velvet Underground was, competing with them for a while in the early years. But it's nice when they do acknowledge some of these other bands, but they always like singles. Like I remember when there was this Hazy Fantasy record that came out in the UK, and Ron and Russell thought it was really cool. And there was this Wigfield song. Wigfield was not a great artist, but this song came out in Germany at the time when I was working music that you can dance to. It's just ridiculous. But they always had this taste for kind of cool pop songs.
Yeah.
They love pop music.
Yeah.
And they like it when people bring something different to the pop music thing instead of the usual trite ballads. And, so they like personality and, that kind of thing. But they don't usually single out bands so much. I mean, I have seen them refer to the Sex Pistols a few times, which I was kind of impressed with.
Yep.
And I think they admire and appreciate, some of their fellow electronic bands like Depeche and New Order. But I don't think they're sitting down and listening to Depeche Mode and New Order because, after all, they created the Bible for that type of sound, with Marauder. They've already done the Marauder thing, so they don't need to go and listen to Marauder influenced bands. But they're just unique. But they're more interested in like Billie Holiday and American Jazz Songbook and hip hop. I mean, I think Ronnie likes hip hop. I don't even like hip hop. I can't go there. But I think hip hop has had somewhat of an influence on some of Ronnie's lyrics, certainly from Suburban Homeboy onwards. There's definitely those influences. So they're looking for stuff that's not been done before.
Yeah. Okay, so are you ready to do our top 15 underrated songs? And it doesn't matter, but I have mine in order from the earliest to the latest.
You and I are on the same wavelength, okay? I got the same thing, Larry.
Okay.
Should we alternate? Should we do
one at a time?
Okay. All right.
You can go first.
Okay.
And I'll roll my eyes when you say whatever song it is.
Okay. Well, okay. Half Nelson, Sparks, High C.
Ooh, that's a good song. Yeah, I like that.
Since you left the opera, I just frown a lot and mumble. I'm humble. Or, I mean, come on. Yeah. So brilliant. So brilliant. Yeah. So I love that song. Again, it was one of those songs I'm listening to, reading the lyrics probably late at night and going, it's just such a story. I just see the opera singer. Actually, it's somebody probably like crying, drowned in a sea of tears, somebody like that, and she had this glory period and now it's over with for her, So I love that song.
All right. So the thing is with 15, I had to skip some great songs on some great albums, but that's, they've had a long career. So my number 15 is, this would be in my top 5 songs of all time. Whippings and Apologies, which I hope they're still doing on this North American tour. They did it in the UK.
Yeah, they did. And then last tour, they dropped a couple songs like Toughest Girl in Town.
Beaver O'Lindy, they did, yeah.
Yeah, they did do Beaver. Yeah, well, okay, great song. S&M, right?
Yep.
Yeah. A little, the bondage song.
Yeah. But I've got the CD with the sped up version. That's why I want this remastered.
Oh, cool. So you just jumped to Woofer. You nothing on
because
on
like I said, there's only 15, right? So I'm gonna have to skip some albums. Yeah.
I'm skipping all the ones that everybody loves, by the way. So
okay.
I'm gonna stick with Sparks again. Big bands.
Ooh, yeah.
Great. And then when he's singing, whatever, I had to sell my heater, so please don't shake.
Yeah.
Come on.
And then that change up in the middle, I love that.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. Harley's little drum thing going on. So yeah, great song that, nobody ever talks about. So that's my second. Okay.
All right. Number 14 for me is from an album called Kimono My House. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
No.
Here in Heaven.
Yeah. Great song.
Yeah.
Just as good as all the hits,
Yep.
actually. And the lyrics about, Juliet, you let me take the lead, I mean, it's just too funny and too sad and just classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that, but I didn't put it on my list because I'm not.
What did you think about finally, the Midnight Special showed all 4 of the Sparks performances? That's the first time I ever saw Sparks, was back in 1974. On the TV show, the Midnight.
Yeah, I remember the Midnight Special, but I wasn't. So I didn't.
No, but I
turned
mean
on the
now,
music.
like, have you seen it?
I
Like,
haven't. I haven't seen
you
that.
haven't seen it? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did used to watch Midnight Special when I started getting ELO was the band that got me into music.
Yeah, they were on
So
there.
I'm a latecomer. It was a New World Record, so that was around 76.
Yeah.
So I wasn't privy to these albums when they came out, but I went back and loved them. Okay, well, I'm going to go to Woofer and Tweeters, Moon Over Kentucky.
Yeah.
Incredible, and the chord progressions, and singing about whatever he didn't get his encounter, and he's not happy about it, right? So they're meeting up under the moon over Kentucky,
and Russell's vocals on that are just so good too.
Yeah, the echoing and the production, great song. Okay.
All right, number 13 is from the Kimono My House era, Lost and Found.
Yeah.
I know most people, love Barbecuity, which is a great song, but I love Lost and Found even more.
Yeah.
When
he lowers his voice and he says, "Has anybody seen Mr. Brown?" So nobody will hear it, so he doesn't have to.
I just love the whole story too. Once again, right? Like, I got a wallet here.
Yeah. It's just the things that Ronnie comes up with, and but then again, who else could interpret these but Russell? Their synchronicity when they write these records is it's astounding. So, okay, well, I've got another B-side for you from that same era, is Profile.
Yeah, I love that.
I love it. I love that kind of Clemser music quality to it.
Profile.
Face to face and cheek to cheek, fantastic song. So, cool. Okay. Back to you.
Number 12. The opening song from Indiscreet, Hospitality on Parade. I know that at one time, a few years back, Ron and Russell were saying that was their favorite song. And what I love the song, but I love it when that guitar riff comes in.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what it is about it. It's not, it's a pretty simple guitar riff, but it just makes the whole song for me. It's just amazing.
It kicks in. It's the production on that album, and that whole album again.
Tony Visconti. Yeah.
Can you imagine their disappointment when that album wasn't the biggest album in the world? For all the brilliance and all the different musical styles. I mean, they've got bloody country western in there. They've got every style, big band music, and total punk rock. It's just such an opus, and I hope one day, in 100 years from now, people will be talking about Indiscreet and the White Album. It's up there. So I'm with you, but I'm skipping those 3 albums because I want to talk about things that most people don't. But actually, the opening track on Introducing Sparks, which is not one of my favorite Sparks albums, Goofing Off. I love that song. And if they drop that from this tour after they did it,
I'm not talking to them anymore.
Yeah. Goofing Off is classic. And it's like Hava Nagila Hava or something. It's got that you want to get up and dance in a circle with all your friends and, kick your feet up. And it's just so funny and so great. So, yep.
All right. Number 11 for me, from Big Beat. I love that album. Did I tell you? But I think this song is so underrated. Confusion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there was La Tati, and of course Jacques Tati, right? He was who they were working with at the time.
Yeah.
And, you can't ignore a sigh or a little tiny throwaway line that Russell throws in there because there's always some meaning to it. I do love that song, and I actually like the bottom end on that album. The kick ass of it. And it's funny that Blondie, Rip Her to Shreds. To me, the bass line is just like Big Boy. And they came out at the same time. I don't know if Blondie came first or Sparks came first. And I also know from Joseph.
Sparks did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, as a band, yeah. But I don't know if that album, which song came first. But Joseph said that Blondie were huge Sparks fans. So you would hope that, Blondie might want to get together and do something with Sparks. Debbie Harry's still out there, but of course Clem just died, so that's kind of a bummer.
I know that Joey Ramone was a big Sparks fan too.
Yeah, the Ramones and Sparks I think they were all friends, and I think Ron and Russell actually were in one of their videos, and they went to one or two of the Ramones' funerals as well. So, is it my turn?
Yep.
Okay. All right. My favorite album of all time, probably my favorite song from my favorite album, which might make it my favorite song of all time, La Dolce Vita, number one in heaven. It gets lost in there. Tryouts would probably be my second favorite song, but La Dolce Vita, the production and the swirling synths and that whole underworld of Giorgio Moroder at its very, very best, that I Feel Love meets From Here to Eternity sound. And of course, this album was Giorgio's practice with working with the band, because then he went on and of course did Blondie with the American Gigolo soundtrack and Call Me. And then he started producing everybody, Bowie and all that. But Sparks were Giorgio's entrance into the rock world after Donna Summer and his own solo stuff. So La Dolce Vita, just magnificent.
Yeah. When I heard about Number One in Heaven coming out, I was reading that it's like a disco album. So I was a little concerned, right? But the very first time I played it, it's like, it was Sparks to me, right? It had their personality in it. Right? So I loved it, almost right away. I didn't cry, Peter.
Well, I made up for that cry with a lot of joy. And believe me, I did my best to convert everyone I knew into, Donna Summer was huge at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if you like Donna Summer, you got to love this. And people are like, oh, it's too, it was just too weird. People and their limited perceptions. Okay.
I'm next. I think it's my turn. Number 10. Or is it you?
We just talked La Dolce Vita. I think it was
That's
me.
right. It's me then. Yeah. Okay. Number 10. Now, this is a song that they actually performed on their solo tour in Toronto. And I was so glad they did. It is from Introducing Sparks. It is Those Mysteries. I love those lyrics, like, questioning life, like.
And I have a dear friend who I tried to get into Sparks. We were in the music business together. He ultimately got into them with Little Beethoven. That turned him, but he loved that song and he didn't like anything else they did. It was funny. He was like, oh, they've done something I can actually, understand and appreciate. Okay, but I like everything on that album actually now, and I like that song a lot, and Russell's voice is so good, and I hear you. Okay,
Number 9.
So I'm going to go to the album everybody hates, Terminal Jive, Stereo. That should have been the single instead of Young Girls, to follow up When I'm With You, or The Greatest Show on Earth, which is also on my list. I'm just going to talk about them both and you skip me and then you do too, because they're both on Terminal.
I got to show you this, Peter.
Oh, yay. Okay. Tell me what you like about Stereo.
It's the best song on, well, besides When I'm With You, which is fantastic, but it's just, I love it when in stereo, just the way Russell sings it. It's just so catchy, and it's such a good song, and the panning and everything.
Yeah, the panning of the drum.
Yeah.
That whole like Morodery thing, or Harold Faltermeyer. Well, and it's a very naughty song as well.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, people are like, really, it can't be about that, and I'm like, yeah, just read those lyrics, So yeah, it's Ron and his tongue-in-cheek,
Yeah.
I'm gonna break the rules, but you're not gonna necessarily know what this is about. Kind of thing. It's so melodic and it's so catchy.
Yeah.
And The Greatest Show on Earth, which to me was the bridge between Terminal Jive and Number One in Heaven, because The Greatest Show on Earth has a very rich Moroder-esque electronic sound to it. And I love the Mop Tops, Boston Pops, and Art LeBeau. And, I had to go look up who all those people were at the time. I had no clue. And just, she's the greatest show on earth. And, it's like, she's up in her apartment and all these guys are going up to, get the greatest show on earth. Just too funny. And of course, it's the name of a great Hollywood movie, which has nothing to do with the song title about the circus, which I'm sure that they watched when they were kids, So yeah. So those are my two terminals.
Yeah.
And now I think you get another one or two.
Yep. Well, number 9 for me, from Number One in Heaven, is Academy Award performance.
Yes.
It's such a heavy song, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like a rock song, but with synths.
Yeah. It's, to me, that was the first song on Number One in Heaven that I actually liked. Yeah. Because it had that Kimono My House, like franticness about it. Blah, 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 blah. He's singing at, 1,000 miles an hour and he's throwing everything in there. And then, of course, it's about the casting couch and what this girl has to do. That's her Academy Award performance. Basically, she's sleeping with the director so that she can, get the Oscar later.
Yeah.
It's just so freaking brilliant.
And there's no truth to that.
Nothing
is there.
No, it's so great. And I'm glad, it's on the tour list now too, which is so bizarre and so exciting. So please, guys, don't drop that one or goofing off. Just do them all.
Or whippings and apologies.
Yeah. So that's
take out This Town Ain't Big Enough for Both of Us.
Yeah. And they'll take you and me out and burn us at the stake. Okay. No, they've got to do that because that really, I mean, more than just hearing the song is being in the crowd and hearing the swell of the, people around you going, oh my God, and of course that song is just so brilliant. Okay. Well, I'm going to skip to one. It actually came out on an album, but a version that I did not care for. But the original Carrere 12-inch single of Modesty Plays, which came out just before the Sparks in Outer Space album. And it was a demo they did for a TV show called Modesty Blaze. And they're actually singing Modesty Blaze, but they couldn't use that in the title. And so it never got released in America. And if they were ever to remaster Sparks in Outer Space, they should throw that on there. And Modesty Plays was a smash on K-Rock. And it was so hard to find. And it took me months to get it at our local record shop where they sold 12-inch singles. And I just think Russell's voice, and again, the production quality, it was just a demo, they said, but to me, it sounds like a full-on, beautifully produced song, and it's hysterically funny. She May Like Caviar and Cocktails.
Yeah.
Just here we go, Ron Mael and your utter brilliance and this completely underrated song. And I don't think if you were anywhere else but Los Angeles, you probably had no idea that this song even came out at the time. Did you get it when it came out, Larry? No. Yeah. Modesty Plays.
All right. So I've already talked about my number 8, which is Stereo from Terminal Jive. So you go next, Peter.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to stick on the same page with Modesty, my favorite song, and an album that doesn't get enough love from Sparks fans. And I guess because they didn't grow up in LA, Sparks in Outer Space is in my probably now top 10, because I love all the last 5 albums. And so they pushed it out of my top 5. But Sparks in Outer Space was their biggest album in LA. It was the number 2 album of the year on K-Rock. Almost every song on that album got played on the radio and became a staple in LA, including your least favorite, Please Baby Please. That was like the last thing they went to on the album to play that. But I think popularity in its simplicity, it's like what OMD at their very best were doing with songs like Electricity and Enola Gay. It's that simple, very basic synth line. And so, are you showing me? I've seen a
Where is it?
scribble.
Don't look at the scribble. Where
Okay,
is it?
it's down there. See, okay, great. Well, you and I think are in sync about a lot of things. Right? So I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful song. And I like Cool Places. And I think the reason they released it as a single was because obviously the Go-Go's were huge. And to have Jane Wiedlin, it was catchy and hooky and fun. But popularity was leagues above Cool Places, I think.
And the production, once again, right?
Yeah.
Even today, like on Head, it's amazing, right?
Yeah. And self-produced.
Yeah.
It was after, because they had worked with Mac,
Yeah.
who coincidentally was the engineer for ELO at Musicland Studios and was doing Queen.
And Queen, yeah.
And Queen at that point in time, my God, the early 80s for Queen was the worst period of all, oh my God, that whole hot space period with Queen, right? And here are Sparks being brilliant and Queen selling millions of records and only people in LA were listening to Sparks. But yeah, Ron and Russell, I guess, had the opportunity or they couldn't find producers or Atlantic wouldn't pay for it. I don't know, but they produced themselves. And once again, proved to the world that they're more than just a freaking brilliant band. They can produce themselves. And I love the sound of that album, especially at that time. And that song is the ultimate. That and All You Ever Think About Is Sex, but everybody knows that song. So yeah. Okay.
So number 7 for me, From Angst in My Pants, The Decline and Fall of Me. Like how many artists write a song about failure selling albums, right?
Yeah. Well, they do it. I love how they talk about, they talk about the music business in a lot of ways. They talk about
position,
the song structure. Like When I'm With You, this is a part of the song when I should say something special, but I can't make up nothing special. They're analyzing themselves while they're actually putting out their own music. It's just, again, it's this introspective brilliance that is unique to Sparks. So I love that song.
I love the line "Goodbye, future
future Mrs. Mael." Yeah, that album is one of my all-time favorites as well. And I do think, and I didn't put it on here, one of my favorite Spark songs of all time is I Predict. And I think I Predict should have been a monster hit. It was their We Will Rock You, but it was funny and it was deep and it was kick ass. And, again, Queen stole all the thunder and here's Sparks doing what Queen did, but better. And, the song did moderately well. It got up to, I think, number 60 on the Hot 100, which for Sparks was their biggest song up to that time until Cool Places. But still, it should have been a number 1 record and should be something they're playing today on the radio.
All right. Number 6. I already talked about that. Popularity from Sparks in Outer Space. And even that song, Please Baby Please, I don't dislike it. It's a good song. It's just not a typical Sparks song because it's so ordinary, right?
It is. It's
pleasant.
It's pleasant. And it's like Johnny Hates Jazz or something. It's like one of those pop records. You wouldn't turn it off when you heard it on the radio, but you wouldn't sit and wait, for 5 commercials because they're going to play Please Baby Please next. And, but I always like that song actually, but I like the little synth riff in it and Ronnie's way of breaking into these like kind of Muzaki elevator sounds in the middle of a rock song and stuff. It's just, it's quirky and unique. Okay. Well, I'm going to skip to when I was working with them in the song. And also it was their manager, Joseph's, one of his favorite songs of theirs, certainly at this time, was Rosebud. And it was one of the first really serious Spark songs.
Yeah.
And I've heard it misinterpreted so many times. And I never sat down with Ron and Russell and said, what exactly is this about? But to me, it's about a woman on the balcony of, or on a, the window ledge, about to jump off, and he's pleading with her basically, I'll buy a camera, we'll take vacations, all of this to try to persuade her from making that leap to her death. And his voice is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where I could hear Eurythmics, Annie Lennox, or on that kind of level of depth and pathos in a way. And I feel guilty in a way because we had a chance for Rosebud to be the second single off of Music That You Can Dance To. But K-Rock had jumped on Fingertips and told Curb Records and Ron and Russell that this was their greatest song. And it was when cover songs were really popular, Bananarama, Venus, and all these other things were out at the same time. And so I was like, well, the vibe is about Fingertips, so Ron and Russell, they went in the studio and they remixed Fingertips, and they did a really great club mix of that. But the problem with Fingertips is after you've listened to it 5 times, you're just like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And the song, it got on the club chart and it did okay. And Rosebud was lined up as the 3rd single, but then Curb decided they weren't going to release any more songs. Ron and Russell did a remix of Rosebud, which was absolutely brilliant. I got to go to the studio when they were doing it, and they actually had free time in the studio, and that's when Russell did this acoustic version. Actually, no, this is for change. I'm sorry, but I was in the studio when they were doing it. And Russell did this acoustic version of This Town with this guy Steve, this guitarist guy. So I mean, it was like just kissing the ring to be around them at this time and to be able to have this kind of access with them. And Rosebud, I know they love that song. And of course they love Orson Welles and Citizen Kane. Rosebud is the name of the sled that entered in the beginning, and Rosebud is, so that song meant a lot to them. And I feel really bad. So it came out in England on this label called Car Records with their remix. And so to make it up to them and to try to persuade Curb to release it, I bought the 12-inch. I bought all the 12 inches that I possibly could. And I got it on the Billboard chart as a breakout, and Curb, I couldn't move them to put the song out, because I really do think Rosebud, it might not be the first song that people go to in the Sparks canon, but if they sit down and listen to that song, the depth to it, and you don't even have to be a Sparks fan, because it's not, there is humor in there, but you have to delve deep into it. It's a sad and compelling story, so beautifully produced and so beautifully written. And I just think it's one of their most underrated gems. So here's to Rosebud, and to Joseph, my dear friend. So
and also, again, the production is just so good on that, right? Or on the whole album.
It is.
All right, my number 5. Now, this is an album, Pulling Rabbits Out of a Hat. When it came out, I liked it, but it was a bit disappointing at the time. But now, I have a new appreciation for it. Actually, it's on Love Scenes. That's on Pulling Rabbits, right? Yeah. Love Scenes. I don't know what it is about that song. Just in recent years, it's just such a great poppy, and I think Russell did the lyrics. I'm pretty sure he did the lyrics for that.
Wow.
I could be wrong, but
I might have missed that. But wow. Well, that's an interesting choice.
Love Scenes. Now I can sing, Peter.
Yeah, Larry. We won't get
something like that.
Well, Love Scenes, I'm surprised you didn't say the song that sings itself, which a lot of Sparks fans loved, including myself.
I like it. Yeah.
I loved that song. At the time, it was my favorite song in the album. But I think now I love the title track, and of course, With All My Might, which Pulling
should have
Rabbits,
been a hit.
Yeah, it's a tragedy that song was not a hit. So many of their songs should have been.
And the video was great too.
Yes, that really pretty girl, and very much sort of a Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse, cool
and
places
a
era.
picture of Ron Wood behind, or was that in Cool Places? One of those videos. There's framed pictures of different people, and one of them is Ron Wood from the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. I'm not sure which one. I just remember the pretty girl in the cactus in the background on the horse.
Yeah.
And, you know, Russell in his plaid shirt and all of
Yeah.
that, or cowboy shirt. Okay, well, I'm going to skip to the album that everybody hates, that I love and was closely involved with. And it is a mellow song. And it is one of those kind of songs, almost like Please Baby Please, where you're like, yeah, it's pleasant and everything. But I love Just Got Back from Heaven.
Yeah.
And in addition to loving it, their mixes on that 12-inch, which went to number 7 on the Billboard Club Play chart, by the way. So Important went to number 8. I love So Important too.
Yeah.
That was a great song. Just Got Back from Heaven went to number 7 for 2 weeks. It was their second biggest club single in America. And I just love the story. And of course, it's his heaven. You know, I call it the heaven trilogy. It's like Here in Heaven, and then number 1 song in heaven. And now he's gotten back. You know, he dies, he goes to heaven, and now he's come back and just got back from heaven. And he's telling his friends at the bar, you know, all about what heaven, and nobody believes him. You know, it's like, oh, there he goes again with one of his tall tales. And I just love that song. And I don't know, I feel very emotionally attached to that particular song. And I just, again, salute those guys, because even a song like that, that's largely forgotten today, it's just classic. It sounds good now, you know?
All right. My number 4 is probably from one of my least favorite albums in total, Plagiarism. Although it's got some good tracks on it. But I love the original song, of course, but the version on there of Angst in My Pants, it's so heavy. It's like almost industrial rock.
Is that, forgive me, because I listened to Plagiarism like twice, and then I was kind of like, you know, I was a champion of that project before it came out, and I was trying to get them to work with other artists and do collaborations and do sort of like, let's readdress your greatest hits that nobody's ever heard of and put them all together in a new package, you know, sort of, so people could digest that. And I was actually, even at the time, I was working with Giorgio Moroder. They introduced me to him, and I worked with him for a couple of weeks, trying to put together his greatest hits and you know, his best, and hire bands like Depeche Mode and really cool, edgy bands instead of, you know, pop people. And my thing was, I wasn't involved on the Plagiarism situation, and their label. I think they, you know, the Faith No More thing. I wasn't. I think they're talented and everything. I just didn't get that sound with Sparks.
I did not care for the version of This Town with Faith No More.
Again,
and I don't mind Faith No More. I have no problem with, but his vocals on that just ruined it for me.
And again, it's not even that it was bad. It was just wasn't what I was hoping for. I would have rather, you know, and even like I think they had Jimmy Somerville and they had Andy Bell, you know, and other people. It was just the mixture of different talents in there. And I also think, you know, it kind of slowed their own creative momentum to work on that versus, you know, getting, you know, their next brilliant opus out there. So I didn't pay much attention, but you know, now that you said that, maybe I'll go back and re-listen to Plagiarism.
It's pretty heavy, and I love that song.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you. So I'm going to go to Little Beethoven, and the song that I love the most when I first heard it, and it's one of the songs that is played the least, I think, or remembered the least, is Ride 'Em Cowboy. Again, it's that frantic kind of Kimono My House era Sparks, where it's just boom, 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 you know, just so fast, and the lyrics are coming at you 100,000 miles an hour, and each one of those lines is better than the last. It just gets more and more funny and more, you know, and again, you know, it's exciting and it's uplifting in a song style, and yet it's about, you know, somebody's crash, and burning at the same time. It's a fabulous song. And it's like the Academy Award performance off of, Number One in Heaven. It's that burst of energy in the middle of this album, which is majestic and somber and, mesmerizing. And then here you have this song. So Ride 'Em Cowboy, underrated.
Cool. All right. Number 3 from Balls. The Calm Before the Storm.
Yeah.
What is it about that song? I think a lot of Sparks fans love that song.
It's a great song. Yeah. And to me, it's like the continuation of Gratuitous Sax, sound wise, that and More Than a Sex Machine. Yep. Great songs. I don't know why they weren't hits. I mean, what was the deal? The only reason I didn't pick both of those songs, as much as I love them, is because they were released as singles. So I figured, well, at least they gave it a shot and they put them out there, and it's not like people didn't listen to them.
Yeah. But
it's beautiful. It's haunting. It's dramatic. It swells. I love both of those songs, and they both have a similar structure and sound quality to them. And I think Balls, again, its problem is it came out after Gratuitous Sax. Yeah. I think it's a great album. Even the songs that people hated the most.
The Angels is great, right?
Angels is great.
And Russell Swear. I have one short story to tell you. On Facebook, they've got these Sparks groups. And what is it? When Sparks put out Please Don't Fuck Up My World, right? There was a Sparks fan that was so upset with them using a swear word in the title that she quit the group or whatever, like she was done with Sparks.
Bye.
That's a real fan,
Yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out, honey. If that bothered you, you obviously aren't getting, the depth of Sparks.
And he swore earlier, right, on the Angels, right?
Yeah. Well, when I was promoting Just Get Back from Heaven, right, we had like a $3 budget. So I hired my friend to make these keychains, and they said, Sparks just got back from heaven, and all I got was this lousy keychain, right? So I sent those out to the DJs on the Billboard panel just as a little something. And this one guy was like, I find this really offensive. I'm a Christian, and this is so offensive that they're mocking, and I'm like, really? You don't get that as humor, Yeah. So people are, what can you say? Wow.
Yeah.
So who next? Me? You?
I'm number 2. We're on number 2?
Yeah. Okay.
My number 2 is from a recent album. Mm-hmm. And this one, I don't think right away it was one of my favorites. It's just been in the last couple of years. I've realized what a great song it is. The Amazing Mr. Repeat.
Mm-hmm. It is.
That's all I got is
Yeah, well, no, I'm processing. And of course, from Little Beethoven on, they've been doing this thing with repetition and mantras.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So again, it's another one of Sparks kind of making, fun of themselves in a way.
Yeah.
And it's funny, my friend Scott, when I tried to get him into Sparks back in the 80s, he's like, I think they're a little repetitive. Now he's the biggest Sparks fan in the world, and he wears Sparks shirts and all of that. But, there is a thing about repeating. So, and it is a great song. But I love every song in that album.
And you know what? When I really think about it, what's wrong with repetition, right? I don't know.
If you're repeating something worth repeating, it's great.
And there's more to it than just the... there's the lyrics, of course. There's just more to it than them repeating something, right?
Yeah.
The production, everything about it,
And that one comes out of left field on that album. It doesn't sound like anything else on that album either.
Yeah.
So, no, that's a cool one. Okay. Well, I'm going to go into the semi-recent Sparks era. Strange Animal.
Oh, yeah.
Exotic.
Some of that is heavy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh my God, it's heavy. And again, it's one of those songs, like the first couple times you listen to it, you're like, what is this? It's weird. It's not going anywhere. It's because he's fusing these different styles into this story. It's a movie, basically. I mean, it's like some Tim Burton movie, come to life about the song that it's to me utter brilliance, and it's one of my all-time favorites of theirs. And again, something that you rarely hear anybody talk about. So okay,
good song. All right, my number one. Well, it's not number one, but it's all 15 of these are just underrated. They're not ranked or anything, but it is from their latest album. Called, what's it called again, Peter? Oh, Mad. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. The album, right?
Seriously. First of all, I want to say with Mad, I think it's a top 5 album for me.
Yeah,
it is. And I've loved their recent albums, but I think Mad, there's just something about Mad, just the way the whole album flows, I guess. But the song I've chosen is In Daylight. I think it's just gorgeous.
Okay. I love that song. I love it. My least favorite song on that album, I like. There isn't a bad song on the album. That's interesting. I love In Daylight. I love the lyric. I mean, come on, everybody looks good at night. And he's talking to her by candlelight. He can't be seen in the daytime because he's too old and whatever. So I love it. So my number one, or not number one, but the latest is also from Mad, and it's Don't Dog It. I love that song, that and the Running Up the Tab at the Hotel for the Fab.
Yeah, I almost picked that one.
Sounding theme, but Don't Dog It. The chord progressions in there, the breaks, and the little jazz riff that he does, that it just goes into this electronic symphony, and breaks, and then he's singing "Don't Dog It, Don't Dog," which is like a hip hop lyric, basically. Don't screw it up or whatever. I didn't even know what that meant until I heard the song. So I just love that song, and it's not being played on the current tour, but Hotel Fab is. So that's why I didn't mention that, because it's kind of like a tie between those two songs. But also, and I think I heard you say you cried, or it almost made you cry when you heard it, was Lord Have Mercy.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the most beautiful songs they've ever written. It's up there with All My Might.
And you see, when Sparks do a song like that, or the song All That, there's always going to be some Sparks fans thinking they're making fun of this type of song that they're doing. They're not being sincere. They're and they're being sincere. They can be sincere. They can be serious. Like
they're pop artists. They're art pop. I mean, they're art rock and art pop, but they love pop music. They, ABBA, the Beatles, Electric Light Orchestra, all these people who make great pop music. There's nothing wrong with pop music as long as it's genuine and it's not just calculated pap. This is deep, beautiful stuff. And Russell's vocals on that also. Oh, it is so beautiful. I get teared up on that. And also the other, My Devotion, which is really nice, but I actually like Lord Have Mercy a little bit more. My Devotion is more All That. And I love All That too. I was in tears, and that was all at the time of COVID, and and we were all afraid, oh my God, is this going to be their last song? And are they wrapping it up and saying, and they weren't. They just and they're not wrapping it up now. I'm sure they're going to keep working until they can't work anymore, and they're going to keep putting out records and gifting their fans with more pleasures. And to me, Sparks is one of the great joys in life. It's one of the few left, really. These are dark times, I think. And
I was actually just thinking that today about Sparks. It's like they make people happy. Not every band, not every band's catalog makes you happy. I mean, I love Black Sabbath, but they don't actually make my mood happy.
Right. Right. Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are people. I love Marianne Faithfull, but she wasn't an uplifting listen. Or Yoko Ono. I love Yoko.
Yeah.
Do you like Yoko?
I love Yoko Ono's music.
Walking on Thin Ice.
Approximately Infinite Universe is one of my favorite double albums.
Oh, good for you, Larry! You are awesome. We should talk about other music sometime if you're willing.
Well, I've got a bit of a connection with Sean Lennon. The Lennon estate, when there's some new box set that comes out, they send them to some different YouTube channels, including mine. But Sean knows that I think he's watched videos where I've talked about Yoko's music, right? Because so many people, it's not all screaming people.
It's
like,
not.
I even love some of that, like the song.
I do too.
Why.
Listen, and these are the same people who like the B-52s.
Yeah,
and they are literally doing Yoko's chanting and guttural vocalization.
But she has studio albums that are song based with great lyrics, a great band behind her.
Great band, great production.
And I don't know.
Yeah, and Walking on Thin Ice, I think, is one of the greatest records ever recorded.
Yeah.
And, it was John Lennon. He died coming out of the studio when they produced that. And he said to Yoko, "This will be your first number 1."
Yeah.
And, they get out of the taxi and he's shot with the master tapes. And so that record, I got to promote that. And it was one of my favorite things I got to do in the music business. And we got it to number 1 by 1 point on the Billboard Club chart. And then it went to number 1 again later. I didn't promote the second time it came out in the clubs, but I got to work Yoko's stuff. And it was through my friend Rob DiStefano, who I love dearly, the one I told you he liked that song from Introducing, and he didn't like the other Spark songs until later. But he became a fan. And Rob hired Ron and Russell to remix Give Me Something.
Yeah.
So the Sparks Yoko collaboration, I guess that's probably my last business affiliation with them was working on that project together. And we found out later that of all the people who did remixes on that Yoko project, that she admired the Sparks production on Give Me Something the most, So that was really cool. And so I was very proud of that. And and I just think she most underrated, more underrated than Sparks, more famous than Sparks.
Yeah.
But the people who hate her and do all these cruel things, and say these cruel things about her, have no idea. And of course, she didn't.
And a lot of them are John Lennon fans, right?
Yeah.
You think John Lennon would appreciate his fans like attacking her? Like, ugh.
Yeah, show respect. Yeah, exactly. If you're
you don't have to like her music, but you don't have to be rude.
Yeah, and she was a pioneering artist, and she was very brave. You have Madeline Baccaro's book on her. Madeline, who
I've got it.
Interesting book, and Madeline was very dedicated, is very dedicated to the whole Yoko cause. So props to her. It's a great book.
Yeah.
So, well, Larry.
I'm
sorry. I hope we didn't go on too long.
I didn't know that we'd be doing this for 6 hours straight.
Jesus, you're gonna have to. It's a double album, folks. Yeah, it's a. Please turn me over at the end of Mr. Blue Sky.
No, it was awesome to, you're a Sparks fan, and it's cool to talk to different Sparks fans, and we just love Sparks. That's it. It's simple.
It's simple, and it's a good cause, and it's just a positivity that is lacking. Oh, I don't know if you hear that, but the chainsaw.
People, not often, but sometimes ask me, what should I listen to get into Sparks? I would say this is a great sampler.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because otherwise, you suggest an album, it might not be the album that resonates with you.
You know what I say? My backup on that is get their latest album, because it's so good.
And watch the documentary.
And watch, the Sparks Brothers. And I think if you don't appreciate the latest album, then you're probably not going to appreciate the rest of Sparks. But I think their last 4 albums have been very accessible in a pop sense, And I think that's a good place to start, and then go back.
Yeah.
And then we can give you a list, you know, Kimono, number one in heaven,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Sparks by numbers after that.
Okay, so that was fun, Peter. Thank you very much. I'll have a link for your YouTube channel and your website below this video.
Awesome.
So I hope people check you out. And any last words?
I just want to say thank you. And, you know, it's so fun to be here with you, because during COVID, I discovered you in the whole Sparks canon of, you know, all your different reviews and your ratings of their albums. And I was just like, you know, there's a sincerity to what you're doing. You're not pomp, and you're, you know, you're self-effacing, you know, to borrow a Sparks song title.
I'm just another idiot on YouTube.
Yeah, but unlike so many of the other idiots on YouTube, you're not professing, I'm not
professional.
Some, you know, you know, you're just real. And I think that comes across to people who listen to what you do and follow what you're doing. So I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate, as a fellow Sparks fan and a Sparks promoter, you know, I still consider myself a Sparks promoter, even though I'm not officially doing it. I think the more people we bring into the world of Sparks, the more people we're actually going to make happy. You know, in the movie, Gary Stewart said, don't tell new Sparks fans, where the hell have you been? You know, say welcome on board.
Yeah.
You know, and he was a great guy, and I try to keep that philosophy about it. And you're a big part of that. So so thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Okay.
Yeah, and I hope you enjoy the show up there. And I wish I could come to Toronto, where all the sane people are. You know? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Peter.
Thank you, Larry.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye.